Hello, Petal. How are you doing? How's it going? How's your week been? I didn't realise it had been so many days. It seemed like only yesterday when we last recorded a chapter. But last week, the recap is, see if I can remember this rightly, we have Mr. Courtright again, which we've had him before in previous, or later, Tom Holt books. I don't know where I am in this series right now. Actually, I do. This is one of the earliest books, and obviously we met Mr. Courtright later on, like throughout the other books as well. I think one of the ones that's most significant is Flying Dutch, for example, I think, if I remember rightly. But I digress. So, Mr. Courtright and Pan were having a little bit of a chat, a little bit of a blether, and Pan went on to Wall Street to do a job for Mr. Courtright, where he was like mind manipulating taxicab drivers. That's one little recap. So, and we, one of the good comments that we had was that Pan was reminiscent of Roger Moore, I believe, which was cool. Now, as you can hear, I've got a bit of a sore throat, but we're still going to go ahead and forge ahead because it's been too many days. The other update and recap from the last episode of Odds and Gods by the wonderful Mr. Thomas of Holt is the wonder that is gods and men. And machinery, yes. Thor got his part in the post. He was like, oh, I got my part in the post. And he sneaky, went off to the shed to go and keep working on his traction engine with his mates, right? So they got it all put together, and they had to be really sneaky, hidey sort of thing, because it was Thor, Odin and Frey. And Frey came in wanting Frey to go and play bridge, but like he was like, nah, not today. And she was like, oh, whatever, boys. So, you know, like the way they do. Anyway, these three gods, like, they're a bit aged, a lot aged, because if you think about it in God's sense, it's a lot more aged than we get. So, yes, but they're still full of vim and vigour and pep. So, they have got their traction engine working, and it flies, but it doesn't fly in straight lines, especially when Odin's driving, and he drove it into a mountain. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much the recap of last time. But what I'm going to have to do this time is make sure that I highlight significant moments so I don't have to read the chapter all the way through again. Or actually, I should have listened to it, really thinking about it. You know, making audiobooks and things. So, as ever, my lovely beans, and I've got to say this every time pretty much, if you could like, share and subscribe, follow, hit that ding notification bell if you would like to, then we can keep the channel all bright and vivacious and bubbly and happy and joyful. I didn't give you my news for the last few days, so hey, rock and roll me. Put casters on the big long pine drawer unit, woo, and there were stairs, and put some grippy pads on the stairs. Woohoo! If you let us know how you're doing, how are things, how's it going? We've got a cold snap here, like kind of as areas of high pressure, so we might get some snow. They're taunting us. They started taunting us early. Normally they're taunting us about sort of like November, December, like, oh, is it going to be a snowy Christmas? No, and all that sort of thing. Hey, I haven't even seen a bit of sparkly frost yet. But by heck, because that wind was blowing a gale last night. Woo! I got these like vents on the windows that you can shut through so you don't get any drafts or anything, or any type of animal from the African desert. Is it the African desert? Or is it from the jungle? No, they're definitely not jungle animals. They do eat out of tall trees. I think they're from like kind of like the, the savannah or the Serengeti, something like that. I'm going to have to look that up afterwards because honestly my animal knowledge is absolutely lacking. If you could let me know in the comments, that'd be great. Just in case I forget. But yes, so yeah, basically it was blowing an absolute gale last night. Last time it was blowing a gale, I had a bit of plaster fall off my wall because I've been decorating. And I think it was some of the old, because these walls are ancient. Seriously, got half the wallpaper done. Yeah, nearly there. But yeah, so basically there was a little teeny tiny bit of plaster. Now, I don't think it was the wind blowing the walls in, because these are solid stone walls, you know, proper miners' cottages and stone walls and things. But, yeah, the wind was so strong and it was like, what the bloody hell's that? Anyway, sorry, getting off on another tangent again, and it's been nearly 5 minutes, so we've done the recap. We know we've got to highlight as we go through, and the next thing we've got to do is do chapter 4 of Odds and Gods by the wonderful Mr. Thomas of Hull.
Yes,
Said the thug.
as a matter of fact, I am a doctor. What's it to you, pruneface?
Oh, Minerva, former Roman goddess of wisdom, blinked. Vague thought shapes swirled in her brain, struggling to fight their way through the fog and the mist. You don't, she quavered, look much like a doctor to me.
Shows how much you know, you daft old bag,
The doctor replied.
Now, shut off, will you? There's a love, because I've got things to do.
Minerva hesitated. The next line was welling up in her mouth, the words that she always said to everybody, but somehow, for once, they just didn't seem appropriate, and she wasn't even sure why she wanted to say them. Nevertheless, she did. I shouldn't be here, you know, she said. I shouldn't be here at all. The second thug, who was also a doctor, grinned. Too bloody right, he said. In a pine box 10 feet under's where you should be. Now sling your rook. I'm terribly ill, you know, Minerva said, or at least her lips shaped the words. Prompted by a massive sense of danger, her mind, well, what was left of it, was doing something it hadn't done since Machiavelli was an adolescent. It was thinking. Narrator's note, that seems to be the trend out there for a lot of people. I digress. Little flashes of electricity were crawling along the overgrown, corroded synapses of her brain. By rights, she went on, saying in the meanwhile, I should be in a hospital.
Let go my sleeve, or you will be.
2 intrepid electrical discharges met in a jungle of decaying silicones somewhere in Minerva's cortex. It was like Livingstone and Stanley, and the one who might have been Livingstone might have said, another fine mess you've got me into, because the next words Minerva uttered were comparatively rational, but factually incorrect. You're not a doctor, she said.
Get stuffed.
The first thug, who really was a doctor, gave her a shove, and she sat down heavily on an aged sofa, twisting her knee. 30 centuries of outraised divinity suddenly woke up and screamed at her to turn this arrogant little mortal into a beetle. She tried it, and she missed. Come on, Vern, said the second doctor. Let's get it over with and get out of this dump. He strode forward, not aware that in doing so he'd stepped on Inanna, the great goddess of Uruk, who went shpolite. In the corridor that led from the day room to the lilac wing, a nurse blocked their path. Excuse me, she said, but who are you and what are you doing?
We're doctors.
Nobody told me anything about doctors.
So bloody what?
The nurse, who was the same Sandra who had managed to make Osiris eat hot custard, moved her feet slightly, making it impossible for the 2 men to brush past her without actually knocking her over. May I ask you what you're here for? The 2 doctors looked at each other because they really were doctors and had therefore served their time as the lowest form of life in a busy hospital. They still had buried deep in their psyches the basic fear of nurses that all doctors carry with them to the grave. Now it's no bloody right too. This fear springs from the subconscious belief that the nurse knows a damn sight more about what's going on than they do. Now it's no generally true. And for 2 pins we'll show them up in front of the patient. Narrator's note, seen it. And I'm sure many of you too. Anybody wants to share anecdotes about that sort of thing, by all means, because we love the nurses, we love the NHS, we love the doctors, we love everybody. We really do. But the heart and soul of a hospital, any medical profession, is the nurse, because they know what's going on more than anybody else.
We're here to see someone.
Oh, yes. And who might that be? The first doctor glanced at the back of his hand, where he'd written the name in biro.
It's, Mr. Osiris,
he said.
We're here to give him a medical.
The second doctor interrupted.
That's right, medical.
The first doctor started to feel better. This was convincing stuff. He decided to expand it.
He's thinking of taking out some life insurance,
he went on.
And so we were asked.
You're sure about that?
Of course we're sure.
Life insurance?
That's right, love, so if you just show us the way.
Yes, of course, said Sandra. Just follow me. She led them to the big broom cupboard and opened the door a crack. "This is Mr. Osiris's room," she said. "I won't put the light on because he's asleep at the moment. If you just go in quietly and wait for him to wake up." As soon as they were inside, she turned the key and ran for it. By the time she'd reached Osiris's room, the penny had dropped. 2 doctors. What is it that needs 2 doctors? Easy. She pushed open the door. "Oh," she said, "sorry." She hadn't actually seen Mr. Osiris without any clothes on before. True, she'd heard things about him, how he'd undergone a lot of surgery in the past, had all sorts of bits removed and so on. She wouldn't have been worried by scars. Zip fasteners, though, were another matter.
"For pity's sake,"
Osiris said, reaching for a towel.
"you could have given me a heart attack."
"Sorry." Osiris looked down at the middle of his chest and grinned.
"Weren't expecting to see that, were you?"
"No," Sandra admitted. "Doesn't he get rusty when you have a bath?" Osiris shook his head.
"Stainless steel,"
he replied.
"I had them put in to make it easier for my wife."
"Ah."
"Was there something you wanted?"
Sandra's brain dropped back into gear. "Get dressed quick and I'll help you into your wheelchair," she said. "There's 2 doctors come to certify you."
"I beg your pardon?"
"Certify you," Sandra hissed, grabbing a dressing gown and shoving it into his lap. "To say you're mad? I've locked him in the broom cupboard." Despite the ravages of time, Osiris still retained a fair proportion of the vast mental capacity required of a supreme being. He scowled.
"It's that little bugger Julian,"
he growled.
"You wait till I get my hands on him. I'll make him wish quickly."
She helped bundle Osiris into some clothes and got him into the chair. The corridor was empty.
"Typical bloody lawyer's trick,"
Osiris was muttering under his breath.
"Have me certified, then take over all my powers with one of those damned attorney things. I knew I should never have signed it."
"That's awful," Sandra replied absently. If we can just make it to the service elevator, we'll have a clear run out the back into the car park."
"Mind you,"
Osiris went on,
"you got to hand it to him for brains. Chip off the old block in that respect. Mind out, you nearly had me into the wall there."
"Stop complaining." As they passed the door of the broom cupboard, they could hear the sound of strong fists on woodwork and, alas, intemperate language. It looked to be a pretty solid door, but that wasn't something you could rely on. Never trust something that was once a tree, Osiris reflected. Now, it's not I think I would trust something that was certainly once a tree. They know their business. Seriously, they know everything that's going on around them, but they just keep shum. He'd met a lot of trees in his career as a nature god and had learned a thing or two about them in the process. 1, don't sit under them in thunderstorms. Well, that's the thunderstorm's fault, isn't it? 2, never lend them money. No, isn't it? Sorry for my reaction there. "All clear."
"Hold on a moment,"
Osiris said.
"Where exactly is it we're going?"
Sandra glowered at him impatiently. "Somewhere you'll be safe, of course," she said. "Look, they'll be out of there in no time at all, so do you mind if—"
"Where?"
"My mum's, of course."
"Ah,"
said Osiris.
"Right. Is there somebody in there?"
The first thug, who was of course a doctor and therefore well aware of which of the small bones in his hand he'd broken while banging furiously on the door, stopped hammering and yelled,
"Yes, let's out."
There was a pause.
"Are you a doctor?"
said the voice.
"What do you mean?"
said Julian.
"Escaped."
The first thug pressed a coin into the slot, taking advantage of the hiatus in the conversation to choose his words with care.
"He got away,"
he said.
"One of the nurses locked us in a cupboard. When we got out..."
He shuddered. It had taken a long time, and he was still getting nightmare flashbacks from the conversation he'd had with Minerva through the door.
"When we got out, he wasn't in his room. We searched the whole place from top to bottom. He's legged it."
"Wheeled it," suggested his colleague, shortly before collapsing against the side of the phone booth with severe abdominal pains. Since he was, of course, a doctor, he could have told you the technical name for them.
"You buggered it up, you mean?"
"Yes," admitted the first doctor. Then, recalling who he was talking to, added,
"Without prejudice, of course."
Fine, said Julian after a while. I do hope you are heavily insured, because I happen to be a specialist in medical negligence claims. Hi, said the second Thor, grabbing the receiver. It's not fair. We were only... Why are you laughing? I'm sorry, Julian replied. It's that word you just said. Fair. Always has that effect on me. I mean, now listen, you find him and get him committed, like, immediately, or the two of you find yourselves having trouble getting work as snake oil salesmen, let alone doctors. Capiche? Now hang about, shouted the second doctor, and the pips went. Damn, said his colleague. Now what do we do? What the man says would be a favourite. Any idea how we go about it? No. And you call yourself a doctor? Sharp. Situated in its own extensive grounds among acres of rolling cloudland, Sunnyvoyde commands extensive views over 3 galaxies. But it's a bit of a cow to get to if you have to rely on public transport. Add a wheelchair into the equation, and X suddenly equals extreme difficulty. You're sure there's a bus? Osiris demanded. He was starting to feel the cold. Of course there's a bus. How do you think I get to work every day? And what is a bus, exactly? Osiris wrinkled his omniscient brow. I mean, I've heard of them, of course, but I don't think I've ever actually seen one after my time, really. Sandra blew on her hands and jumped up and down until the sensation of a cloud wobbling under her feet got too much for her. It's a sort of square box, she replied, with a wheel at each corner and seats inside. It's a box you go inside? That's it. Ah, you mean a coffin? No, coffins don't have wheels. Narrator's note, but my chest of drawers does now. Yeah. It's a bloody great big chest of drawers. A really long, sort of like oak sideboard one. Like my parents gave it to me to get rid of it and get it out of the way. So I was like, I love that. Like kind of like an apothecary, like the low ones, except it's like waist height. But now it's on wheels, so I can wheel it out and wheel it back when I want to mop behind the skirting boards. See? Yes, I do like to mop behind furniture, so sue me. No, coffins don't have wheels. Bet. It's bigger than a coffin. Bigger than a large coffin. But you can judge for yourself. Exactly on time, the bus drew up and stood for a moment, its engine running and doors closed, as if it was catching its breath. Have you, Sandra asked, got any money for the fare? Money? Round flat metal discs with someone's head on one side and... I mean, replied Osiris irritably, I didn't know you had to pay to go on these things. Yes, thank you. Would 2 gold pieces cover it, do you think? I would imagine so. Hold on then. What are you doing? It's a bit... Osiris grunted. Like I imagine putting contact lenses in must be. Come on, you little... Oh, blast, I've dropped one. No, Sandra explained patiently. You don't have to put them on your eyes. The man just takes them from your hand and gives you a ticket. What's a ticket? Just leave all the talking to me, all right? Ruddy funny way to go about things, if you ask me. Osiris's bad temper soon evaporated when he found that he was only charged half price, and after a few minutes it was obvious he was enjoying himself immensely. The way he kept yelling, "Whee!" and pretending to steer told its own story. Will you stop that? People are staring. I'm used to that. Yes, Sandra whispered back. But we want to be inconspicuous, remember? We're escaping, running away. Or had you forgotten? Osiris had the good grace to look embarrassed. Sorry, he said. Hasn't really sunk in yet. I've been a lot of things in my time, but Most Wanted wasn't one of them. Usually, he added, quite the reverse. Really? Sandra searched in her bag for a peppermint. I thought you gods were loved and worshipped. You know, revered and stuff. Revered, yes, Osiris replied. Loved? No. All right, people say a lot of nice things to you when you're a god, but it's either because they want something or
They're not frightened of getting a thunderbolt up the jacksie. Not because they think you're fun to be with. Masses of prayers and sacrifices, but nobody ever remembers your birthday.
Gosh, said Sandra through her peppermint. I didn't even know gods had birthdays.
Proves my point, doesn't it? Should I be sitting here, do you think? Only it does say, please give up this seat if an elderly or disabled person needs it.
I think you qualify on both counts.
Do I? Well, I never. It must be very complicated being a mortal.
It was one of those slow buses. From Sunnyvoyde it meandered at the pace of an elder glacier, with corns past the islands of the Blessed, across the Elysian fields, round the back of Valhalla, long since sold for development and converted into possibly the most nerve-jangling theme park and paintball game centre in the cosmos. Narrator's note, back in the day, way back when, I actually got shot right in the middle of my chest with a paintball, and by heck is that thing bruised. That was the first and last time I went paintballing. Not fun. I digress. The bus meandered along the Nirvana bypass to the Happy Hunting Grounds Park and Ride, where the bus suddenly filled up with dead Indigenous Americans. And narrator's note, I've got to say this, and if I don't get it out, it's going to really annoy me. I think anybody that was like, whether it's Latin America or America itself, if you are Indigenous, you've got the right to go anywhere you bloody well want to. And stuff going on is bloody horrible, and that's all I'm going to say on the matter. But yes, Indigenous Americans, Native Americans, or by the name of the tribe is the good way of doing it. So, sorry. Shortly after a brief stop at the Jade Emperor's Palace, Osiris fell asleep and only woke up when Sandra tugged at his sleeve. He looked out the window. Come on, Sandra was saying. The next stop is ours. I'll get your wheelchair out of the rack.
Hey, said the god. Where is this?
Wolverhampton.
But it's already small.
You should have thought of that before, like on the 6th day, for instance.
That wasn't me, replied Osiris defensively. That was the other bloke. Thing. Name begins with a J.
Up we get. Although he never dared mention it to his priests for fear of causing a mortal offence, Osiris had never been a great one for ceremony and fuss. But there are certain ways of going about things that are bred in the bone, and when a god visits Earth, he expects more of a welcoming party than a small child on a bicycle and a stray cat. Osiris sighed.
And people actually live here? He said.
Yes.
How do they fit in those ditchy little houses?
We manage.
Which way now?
Actually, Sandra said, opening the gate and pushing the wheelchair through. We're here.
Surely not.
Look, if you're going to be difficult, we can turn straight back round and go back. Just because you're a god doesn't mean you own the place.
Well, actually,
you know what I mean. Sandra opened the front door, parked Osiris's wheelchair in the small front parlour, and went through into the kitchen. From behind the kitchen door, Osiris could hear a buzz of voices. The door opened. Mum, said Sandra, meet Mr. Osiris. He's a god. Mr. Osiris, this is my mother. Sandra's mother was a small, potato-shaped woman who looked as if she'd been repeatedly washed in bleach but not ironed. She stared at the god suspiciously. Is he staying for his tea? She asked. Because I was going to do liver. Narrator's note. What? Actually, Mum, Sandra replied, Mr. Osiris will be staying with us for a week or so. You see, he's escaping from his godson, who wants to take over the world by having him certified. He'll have to have our Damien's room then. That'll be fine. Sandra's mother sniffed. He's not one of those vegetarians, is he? Only I thought we could have steak and kidney tomorrow. No, it's no. What? There's vegetable soup if you'd rather, but it's only packet. Oh, no, it's not. Do you remember those, like, packets of powdered soup? Yeah, because I think they're just cup soups now, but used to be able to, I can't remember the name of the brand, but it began with a K. And used to add boiling water to it and, like, do it in a pan and simmer it and everything. And it was absolutely minging. It was so grotesque. And it wasn't like cup soups, as I said, like they are today. I remember the garden vegetable one, and honestly, that was nearly as bad as the one that I had in Aldershot swimming baths, which was like after you went swimming. I was very little, but I still remember it to this day. And like going to a vending machine, and my mum thought, oh, I know, I'll give them something healthy. And like you got one of those like white plastic cups of carrot soup, and it was sweet carrot soup, and I've never tasted anything since then or since that was so I love carrots. I love carrots in any shape or form, but this in this soup wasn't carrot. There was something going on with that carrot. It was not right. It wasn't right. No, not right. We went back to steak. I don't like kidney. Don't like steak. What is it with all the awful jokes? The awful jokes. And back to the story. Apologies.
Steak and kidney will be fine, Mrs.
Osiris said.
I really don't want you to go to any trouble on my...
And what about clean towels?
Sandra's mother went on.
What with him being in a wheelchair and everything, because it's Thursday tomorrow and the man's coming to fix the aerial in the morning.
Mum,
and you haven't forgotten I have my feet done Mondays now instead of Wednesdays, have you?
Sandra's mother sighed.
Though I suppose he could have the small chair from the lounge and I'll move the nest of tables into the kitchen. For now, she added. Can he use the, on his own?
Mr. Osiris is a god, Mum. I'm sure he'll be no trouble at all, will you?
You'll hardly know I'm here, Mrs.
Osiris sucked his lower lip. Either he was missing something or else Julian's doctor friends were well within their rights wanting to have him certified. 2 weeks in this place, he added to himself, and I might even give myself up.
Does he want a scone?
Yes.
Right.
Sandra sat down and took her shoes off. I'm sure you two will get on like a house on fire, she said, looking at the ceiling. She likes visitors, really.
Well, quite.
Osiris muttered to himself.
After a day or two, she probably puts vases of flowers on them. It's very kind of you, he said aloud, doing all this for me. You're sure it's no trouble?
No trouble at all.
Oh. We are not lost.
Thor glanced up at the sky.
Anyone else saying that, he said, would have grounds to be worried about sudden bolts of lightning. What? Perjury?
Thor explained.
If it's any help, that down there looks very much like Bury St. Edmunds. What do you know about Bury St. Edmunds?
On the chariot flew, whirling like a vast black cloud over the sleeping landscape of, for the record, northern Italy. Where its shadow fell thin and gauzy in the pale moonlight, dogs whined and sleepers turned in their beds, crossing themselves and dreaming strange dreams.
A damn sight more than you do, probably,
Thor replied.
Look, there's the high street directly below us. And that bright light there must be Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's. Since your time,
Thor replied, not without slight embarrassment. Odin and Frey looked at each other.
All right,
Thor snarled.
So I've got this acquaintance in Bury St. Edmunds, and from time to time she sends me the odd postcard. She's 75 years old, for crying out loud,
Thor snapped.
Well, you're no spring chicken yourself. Shut up and navigate.
Now, there had been a time, not so long ago in divine chronology, but for the gods all things are different, when the passing of Thor's chariot made the skies boil and the earth shake, but not longer. There were many reasons: the decay of faith, the decomposition of the ionosphere, the fact that when Odin put the main crankshaft assembly back together, he somehow managed to connect up the swinging arm direct to the connecting rod without linking it up to the reciprocating toggle, and all probably just as well. Mankind cannot bear too much unreality, and there are rather too many military airfields and guided missiles on the northeast Italian border to make overflying in an environmentally disruptive UFO a sensible course of action.
What's she called then?
Asked Frey.
What's who called? Your bit of stuff in Berrysunt. She is not, Thor growled. My bit of stuff, okay? Mrs. O'Malley is highly respectable. Carry on with married women now, are we? Widow, who happens to have a sincere and scholarly interest in Scandinavian folklore and who happens to have consulted me on a few points of reference concerning her. What's her name then? None of your business. Ethel. I bet you it's Ethel. Look, can we please talk about something else? Because I find this whole conversation extremely childish and pretty damn offensive. So it is Ethel. No, it is not.
Beneath them, a flash of silver, a few silhouettes against the sky, the glitter of the moon on a broad expanse of still water. The early fishermen of the Venetian lagoon looked up from their nets and wondered exactly what they had just seen. A black cloud flitting across the moon, a cold, sharp breeze ruffling the lagoon into a myriad feathery waves, a distant sound as of far, unearthly voices bickering.
And that,
said Odin triumphantly,
must be Scarborough.
And I don't know if you can hear it, but to finish it off, Michael Cat Davros is singing for his summer, and it's early yet. Far too early for him to have his summer. I don't know if you'll be able to hear that, but it's like, meow, meow, meow. He is a noisy boy, bless him, but he does get the most loves because he is a cat of liquid. He is a liquid cat. So, what shall we recap on that one next time? So we had the two doctors. They were bimbling about. They bumped into Minerva, and they're working on behalf of Julian. Julian, who is Osiris's son. Osiris himself has been whisked away to Sandra's house, well, her mother's house, which is in Wolverhampton, but their accent is certainly, it's more Hull than Wolverhampton, but I didn't really look forward to that one, so that's my fault. Yes, and then finally it's the three gods on their merry way on the chariot again, thinking that Northern Italy is actually Scarborough. So, because it's a cold snap, make sure you keep wrapped up warm and have a nice hot chocolate or hot cup of tea. If you're in a hot climate, please put on your SPF or your zinc. Stay in the shade. Drink lots of water. But most of all, above anything else, of all of these, stay safe. I'll talk to you soon, Petal.